Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webisode of All Politics Are Local. I'm WSAV digital reporter John Dowding. Every week, we're taking the time to break down some of those headlines coming out of Washington, D.C. to see how it's impacting us right here in the coastal empire and low country. As always, we're joined by our WSAV Washington correspondent, Kellie Meyer. Hey, Kellie, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, John. Thank you for having me, as always.
Oh, of course, we have to start our week off with this conversation. I feel like it kind of jumpstarts me and gets me ready for the week ahead, kind of knowing what to anticipate and know what we should be looking out for. So let's start with this. We're seeing here locally in Georgia, Florida, the Southeast, all the way out to Texas, Arizona, we're seeing a major rise in cases of coronavirus. A lot of things have been reopening since Memorial Day. They're attributing a lot of this increase to Memorial Day, and we're just seeing a rise in cases like we saw, honestly, even some places it's a rise in cases like we've never seen. So what is going on the Hill in regards to seeing this rise, I should say, in cases, and what are our local lawmakers saying about what next steps are there to take to, what are they doing? Are they communicating with local lawmakers? What are their steps?
Yeah, and that's a great point because this morning, actually, we have a hearing on Capitol Hill, and Dr. Fauci will be up there as well as other members of the coronavirus task force and people who've been watching this progress through this entire time. So that will definitely be one of the questions we'll be hearing asked of those members, including Dr. Fauci there. As you know, we haven't really seen a coronavirus task force briefing like we used to from the White House. We haven't really heard the president himself really address the situation, like you mentioned, with the growing cases. I can't recall him really coming out and having a fierce address of this progression we're seeing. But we did hear from some senators on Capitol Hill as well as members of the House about growing cases. We heard from Georgia Senator David Perdue about his applauding the governor and the president for their phased in approach, also recognizing that we have to get back to work. But he did also say that this road wasn't going to be easy. So we'll take a listen to what he had to say here.
This is going to be a bumpy recovery as we get this free market system going again. We interrupted the most powerful economic engine in the history of the world, and it's going to be a bumpy restart as we go through the next few years. But I give President Trump and Governor Kemp a lot of credit for finding a balance between the human cost of the disease and the human cost of the economic crisis of continuing to shut down.
And Perdue mentioning that it's not going to be an easy road, but it is going to be something that we have to go down in order to get the economy back going again. So this is going to be something you're going to see lawmakers balancing this, getting back to work, but also addressing the fact that cases are increasing as people continue to go outside.
And I think that's an excellent point, too, is the fact that a lot of lawmakers have been discussing this double-edged sword that they've had to kind of deal with of, well, if we reopen, then we get the economy going, people are going to have more money coming in, we're going to get the economy jump-started, which, I mean, it's an election year. A lot of our lawmakers are running on the economy. But then there's also that public health standpoint perspective of, we reopen, that is just putting a lot of people's public health at risk. Here in Savannah, just over the weekend, I think I may have texted you about this over the weekend when we were preparing for our show. I think now we're up to 6 or 7 different restaurants across just Savannah here are closed because of COVID cases, because of either an employee tested positive, one tested positive for COVID, or they had a patron come in who had COVID and they notified someone on the staff. So there's all of these sort of questions that are looming, and we really don't know our question I constantly have, and I don't know if anybody has addressed this yet on the Hill, is whether or not we are going to see a shelter at home order like we saw in March or April.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and I wonder, and I believe that would be something that will be addressed this morning, really looking to those people that are testifying, like Dr. Fauci, to give us some answers and insight as to where we go from here. We all knew that there would be a likely resurgence in the fall, but I don't know if people realized how quickly we would see the cases spike as people trying to get back to work. And we all know we're all feeling like we want to get back out there. We want to eat inside and go shopping and like that. Everyone has this was it lockdown fatigue or quarantine fatigue? But like you said, these cases are rising, and we really haven't, and that's a great point, we really haven't had a clear answer from lawmakers on should we just lock down again? And it's something I think, like you said, that they are avoiding. They don't want to see because it's an election year, and beyond that, they do want to protect their constituents and want to see them stay safe. But also that includes our economic well-being.
And something else I wanted to actually just was thinking of when you were talking about all of this, we've said this multiple times, you cover a number of states here in the Southeast, and that's where we're seeing this predominant spike in cases again. What are they doing in some other states around us? What are they doing in Florida? What are they doing in Alabama? What are some of their lawmakers saying about all of this and what steps they should be taking?
I think we're seeing in states, just with Florida yesterday, for example, or I believe it was the Miami mayor making masks required, or a mask requirement. So I think you're seeing a lot of places and states recognizing the difference that masks and social distancing can make. Maybe ones that were a bit reluctant to recognize that in the beginning, and now are saying, okay, let's do that. That works. You had Governor Ron DeSantis recognizing that there are young people that are getting this, that probably been going back out to the beach, to the bars, and recognizing that there is a spike there. So I think the recognition of this, and then there comes the address of it. So as long as they're noticing that this is happening, then they could go in forward with, okay, how do we address it?
When switching gears here, going from coronavirus to another big topic that's been prevalent in media and prevalent in headlines in recent weeks has been this police reform effort that's been coming out of it. Locally. We've seen it in places like Minneapolis, where George Floyd was killed. We've seen where their city council voted to defund the police departments, and now we're seeing it on Capitol Hill, where we're seeing both sides introducing their own legislation to reform police. Last week, we saw Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina. He was really the one spearheading that effort from the Senate of that reform bill, and saying, kind of trying to spearhead it and get his colleagues to come together and try to get this bill pushed.
Right.
Kellie, you worked on that story a lot last week, and you were speaking to the senator a lot last week. You were at that press conference they had. Tell us a little bit more about the bill. We're learning more details of it. We're learning more about what it may look like, but we're also hearing, some issues as to why Democrats aren't so fond of it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see, keep an eye on the Senate floor coming up tomorrow. We're going to see this Justice Act be brought to the floor for a vote. Senate Majority Leader Republican Mitch McConnell said he was going to bring this to the floor. He wants to make it law. Generally, when Mitch McConnell says he's going to make something law, he will do everything in his power to make it law. So you're seeing, of course, Tim Scott, the Republican senator from South Carolina, spearheading this effort, getting a lot of support from Republicans, both in the Senate and in the House. I know we were mentioning Congressman Buddy Carter is on board with that in the House. You're going to see dueling votes. The House is going to be voting on their Democratic bill on Thursday. The Senate, just a day prior, happening tomorrow. But like you said, the Democrats in the Senate aren't on board with this. The closer it gets to this vote, the more you're seeing Democrats pushing back. What we're hearing might happen is Democrats outright blocking it. And they're asking Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell if he's going to allow them to vote on amendments so they can get some of what they want to get in there. Basically, Democrats are saying what GOP lawmakers are proposing doesn't go far enough. It simply lacks policy. Democrats want to ban chokeholds. They want to ban no-knock warrants. They want body cameras. Senator Scott's bill doesn't quite go that far. He doesn't outright ban chokeholds. He doesn't outright ban no-knock warrants. He mentioned that in his press conference when he unveiled the bill last Wednesday. Let's take a listen to that.
For us to start a conversation with banning no-knocks doesn't sound like a solid position based on any data, because we don't have that data. Once we have the information, we can then turn to the training that is necessary to de-escalate situations, the duty to intervene, not standing there watching an officer with his knee on the neck.
But Senator Scott, we're looking to catch up with him today. He's very busy pushing for this bill and trying to get more lawmakers on board. We also are looking to talk with Alabama Senator Doug Jones, who faces a tough re-election, but hasn't quite said how he'll vote on this. He said there's not a lot in Scott's bill, but he did say he's open to debate. So you might hear that, as well as New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. He's helping lead that with California Senator Kamala Harris, the Democrats' bill. He hasn't quite said how he feels about Scott. He said he's been in discussions with Scott. That's something I asked Senator Scott last Wednesday if he's spoken to Booker, and he has. So we're curious to see what kind of discussions and where those conversations will lead in terms of a debate happening on the Senate floor tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot that has to be hashed out with this bill. You know, and that was one of the biggest things. And I'm happy you brought it up because there's been so much going on that I wasn't sure if that what I saw was correct. But the fact that the GOP bill did not talk about, and did not prohibit, I guess is the right word to say, the chokeholds, which is the number one thing, not just from people across the aisle, the Democratic side, but it's been what the number one thing protesters have been protesting about all across the country. They've been trying to say, ban these chokeholds that police
Right.
that contributed to the death of George Floyd and countless others across the country. So, I mean, and what have we been hearing from the president about the GOP bill? Have we heard anything from him? I know the big headlines have been regarding what he said over the weekend about COVID testing in Tulsa. And I believe we have a shot from that.
Here's the bad part. When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people. You're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
So as you heard from the president, there's a lot of questions swirling around his statement about wanting to slow down COVID testing. So the administration's been haven't really given a clear vision as to exactly, or clear answer as to what he meant by that. But in regards to this police reform bill, what has he been saying about this?
Well, we saw last Tuesday that President Trump had his executive order on police reform released. He did say he was supporting Senator Scott's bill, so the GOP police reform bill. He does support that. But what's interesting about this, and what I'm going to be watching for tomorrow, and I think what we're all watching for tomorrow, is if Democrats succeed in blocking the GOP bill from going forward, does that risk any type of legislation from going through? And does that prohibit and stop anything from happening? Is it better to have what they call a weak bill go through than nothing at all? So that's a big question. And I think President Trump is prepared to kind of fall back on his EO, his executive order, if he doesn't see anything happen in Congress.
Well, there's definitely going to have to just be a lot of, I think those amendments are going to be the best path forward for them to be able to get bipartisan support with this bill.
Yeah, and that's the big question, if McConnell is going to let them debate those amendments. So really keep an eye on that tomorrow on the Senate floor, if you happen to be watching the Senate floor on a Wednesday. But if not, we will definitely catch you up in our story that evening.
Pull it up just so I'll pull it up to just when you text me being like, oh my God, did you see what happened? I can actually say, yes, I did. Also, before we go, just really quick tidbit so we can let our viewers know, today is also another big primary election day. There are a number of states across the country, Virginia, Kentucky, a number of other states across the country have their primary elections. Again, a lot of those were delayed because of coronavirus concerns. One election that has been getting a lot of attention on social media, and I only want to address this quickly before we go, has been Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate, his re-election bid in Kentucky.
Which is huge.
It's crazy. We're going to learn who he's going against, but also the biggest thing is there's been a huge push because apparently there's not a lot of polling places for people in communities of color.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, we could obviously talk about this more, and we could go on for another hour talking about this, but we're going to just have to wait and see what the voters
Yeah, I would love to talk about that more next time. And I mean, I know we've seen it in Georgia too, with just what Democrats are saying, voter suppression, the lines in communities of color for being able to vote. It's an issue we're seeing across the board, but definitely would love to get into that more, especially as we are approaching November. So I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot.
I'm telling you, coronavirus has just blurred the whole calendar of this whole year. But thank you so much, Kellie, for helping us sort through all of this, as always.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
course. You can see more of Kellie's stories on our website right now. Just go to wsav.com/Washington, and you can catch up on some of our previous episodes of All Politics Are Local right now. Just go to wsav.com/allpoliticsarelocal. Thank you so much again for watching. We'll see you again next week on All Politics Are Local.